Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Black Hole. Today we are gathered here to talk about the legacies of hope in South Asia. Something that reminds us कि हालात चाहे कितने ही discouraging और तारीख क्यों ना हो, the human spirit for peace shines. So, despite a complex history of conflict and division and political tensions, the region remains a beacon of resilience, where people have consistently sought to build bridges, worked to initiate dialogue and promote peace. और यही वजह है कि आज हमारी गुफ्तगू का उन्वान जो आप मेरी पुश्त पे बोर्ड पे लिखा हुआ देख सकते हैं, लेगेसीज ऑफ होप पीस बिल्डिंग इन साउथ एशिया. और इसके लिए हम बहुत शुक्रगुजार हैं बीना सरवर साहिबा के जो मेरे दाएं जानिब तशरीफ़ फरमा है. बोस्टन से आप कराची तशरीफ़ लाई और कराची से यहाँ हमारे यहाँ हैं. सो वेरी ग्लैड टू हैव हर हियर. आप इन्हें जानते हैं, जर्नलिस्ट हैं, आर्टिस्ट हैं, फिल्म मेकर हैं, ह्यूमन राइट्स एंड पीस एक्टिविस्ट हैं. मोर ओवर बीना इज़ एडिटर ऑफ अमन की आशा, co-founder and curator of Tapan, that is the South Asia Peace Action Network. आप फाउंडर और चीफ एडिटर हैं सपन न्यूज़ नेटवर्क की भी. हमें कुछ ही देर में जूम पे ज्वाइन करेंगी ढाका बांग्लादेश से खुशी कबीर, जो सोशल एक्टिविस्ट हैं, फेमिनिस्ट हैं और इन्वायरमेंटलिस्ट हैं. उनके साथ रीता मनचंदा हमें ज्वाइन करेंगी दिल्ली से, राइटर हैं, स्कॉलर हैं, रिसर्चर हैं और ह्यूमन राइट्स एक्टिविस्ट हैं. ख़ास तौर पे आपकी स्पेशलाइजेशन है इन कन्फ्लिक्ट्स एंड पीस बिल्डिंग इन साउथ एशिया विद पर्टिकुलर अटेंशन टू वल्नरेबल एंड मार्जिनलाइज्ड कम्युनिटीज़ इंक्लूडिंग वीमेन, माइनॉरिटीज़, इंडिजिनस पीपल एंड फोर्सिबली डिस्प्लेस्ड पर्सनस. आज के सेशन की मेज़बानी और मॉडरेशन की ज़िम्मेदारी निभा रहे हैं मेरे बाएं जानिब तशरीफ़ फरमाए डॉक्टर नाज़र महमूद साहब. ऑथर हैं, कॉलमिस्ट हैं, एजुकेटर हैं और सोशल एंड पॉलिटिकल कमेंटेटर हैं. आप लोगों की आमद का शुक्रिया. थोड़ी सी जहमत करके अपने सेल फोन्स काइंडली साइलेंट मोड में स्विच कर लें सो दैट देयर इज़ नो डिस्ट्रैक्शन. बाहमी गुफ्तगू होगी लेकिन उसमें बिल ज़रूर आपको भी शिरकत का पूरा मौका मिलेगा. बस इंतज़ार कीजिएगा कि कब हाउस ओपन होता है फॉर Q&A, और ऐसा होने पे जस्ट रेज योर हैंड फर्स्ट सो दैट दिस माइक्रोफोन इज़ गिवन टू यू, ताकि आपकी आवाज़ जो हमें जूम पे हमें आज ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं गेस्ट स्पीकर्स उन तक भी क्लियरली पहुंच सके. एंड दैट्स इट. नाउ प्लीज़ वेलकम खुशी कबीर साहिबा एंड रीता मनचंदा साहिबा ऑन जूम, नाज़र महमूद साहब ऑन माई लेफ्ट एंड आर गेस्ट स्पीकर बीना सरवर साहिबा. थैंक यू.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining this session, and special thanks to our esteemed guests, Khushi Kabir and Rita Manchanda, and our very own Bina Sarwar, who has been running Sapan for the past many years. Brief introduction has been given by Nayyar Afaq, so I am not going to repeat that introduction. Today's session will be quite interesting in the sense that we will fondly remember two of our colleagues, comrades in arms for peace building. Last year we lost two great personalities. One, retired Admiral Ramdas, Ramu, we used to call him Ramuda. He left us, and then quite recently, Tapan Bose, we lost him this year, yes. And so this is the right time to fondly recall these people, especially Tapan Bose, we lost quite recently this year. And first of all, the pattern of this program will be, first we will talk about Tapan, and then we will move on to discussing peace prospects in this region and what are the possibilities for further action that we can follow and pursue as peace activists. And finally, we will also discuss some of the challenges that each of our countries, that is Bangladesh, India and Pakistan, is facing due to our own internal and external policies and what changes we have seen quite recently in Bangladesh, in India, and in Pakistan. So I would like to begin with Beena to set the tone of this discussion, and then we will move on to Rita and then to Khushi, and it will be like multiple rounds. One speaker will likely speak for 5 to 7 minutes, and then we will have a second round of discussion. So first I will request Beena to set the tone of the discussion, and then we will go to Rita.
Thank you, Nazir. Thank you so much, Nazir, and hello, Khushi and Rita. Really glad to have you here, and very sorry for the wait. Very sorry for the wait for everyone who had to wait here. I won't speak for 5 to 7 minutes. I'll just say a little bit about how this session came about. I had mentioned to Dr. Nair, that I'm coming to Islamabad, and he said, let's have a session at the Black Hole. What will we talk about? And then, of course, talk turned to Tapan Bose, who passed away recently, who many of you here know. Many people all around Pakistan also. There's a lot of sadness at Tapan's passing. We knew he was not well, but it sort of happened very suddenly, and it was so we thought, but we should put Tapan in the context of his work. This is not just a remembrance for Tapan, but we want to put Tapan in the context of the building work that he did, and that continues to do through his legacy and inspiring us. Nazir Afaq in the introduction mentioned the South Asia Peace Action Network. So we are all, so Nazir, Khushi, Rita, myself, Nair, many of you who here are already part of the South Asia Peace Action Network, which we call SAPAN. And SAPAN, we look back to look forward. We look back to look forward. And because we have to know our history in order to see what's happening now and to understand the context and look forward. So at the last Sunday of every month, we have an online forum on various issues through SAPAN, and many of you here and many of you may be watching have participated in these sessions. And we start those sessions by going first through the SAPAN founding charter, which has the three points that Rita and Tapan and Khushi and Nazir, all of us, we have endorsed, that started when we launched SAPAN in 2021. The first point is that people in the region, South Asia, need to be allowed to meet each other and engage in economic activity across the region. The second point is to uphold human rights in your own country before you point fingers at others. And the third point is to cooperate and collaborate on all issues, regardless of, whatever the topic is, ranging from gender and climate change, sports, culture, human rights, whatever. So all issues. So these are the three main points. It's like a minimum common agenda. Anybody who has not endorsed it is welcome to do so. You go to southasiapeace.com and it's there. And maybe we should have organized to have it up online, but I think it's so people can go to southasiapeace.com. And the founding charter is at the homepage. It has been endorsed by more than 100 organizations and more than 600 individuals. And like I said, everybody is welcome to. And we have the charter up in multiple languages as well. Now, Tapan and Rita, like I said, were part of this. And Rita was married to Tapan for many years. They set up, they worked in Kathmandu. They did a lot of work on South Asia and human rights. So I won't say much more right now, but actually I'll maybe hand it over to Rita. I don't know if you want to add something to that. So thank you.
It has been doing. We will start our discussion with remembrance. I remember meeting Tapan around 25 years back in 2000 when we visited on Pak India Peace Forum convention in Bangalore. At that time, I and my wife and my two daughters visited. And at that time, I remember in 2000, when we discussed peace prospects, we were talking about another just 5 to 10 years and the things will be much better. That we discussed in 2000. And now when we look back, it has been 25 years and things have gone down. It was much easier at that time to get visas and travel to India, and from India also it was much easier. But in the past 25 years, we have seen that somehow the clock has been running in the reverse direction. as it has become much more difficult, and relationship have been more restrained. Rita, welcome to this discussion. First of all, let's talk about Tapan, briefly his life and his struggle, and then how in the past 25 years things have gone in a reverse direction. So over to Rita. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Salam, namaste. May I beg your indulgence and just reverse the order, and let me begin a little bit about Tapan's work, and then, or not only Tapan's work, the work of a collective, and then maybe go back to focusing a little more on Tapan's particular significance and value. You know, and I want to pick up a phrase that you used. There was a time when it was much easier, that the whole connections, South Asian network connections, cross-border connections, India-Pakistan connections were easier. I want to take you back to, in fact, a historical time, 1993. This was a time when, and I think some of you would remember, the Kashmir emergency was at its peak. Cross-border terrorism was very much the narrative that was foregrounded. There was talk of war clouds, of nuclear war clouds. Of course, the Pakistan nuclear test was to happen a few years later, but I think there was an understanding, acceptance that these were nuclear armed states that were on the brink and that could actually slip into war. This was a very difficult time, and in Vienna, this was actually showcased. In Vienna, that's the Human Rights Conference, the Indian government delegates and the Pakistani government delegates were engaged in a slungfest. I mean, it was the most embarrassing, dismaying experience. And as a result, you had retreating from the main venue, the plenary, you had retreating to the coffee spaces. And who was retreating? Rehman Saab, Tapan Bose, Asma Jahangir. I don't remember who else was there, but certainly, you know, they said, my God, we cannot hear our governments just going slanging match against each other, and all the other countries are just watching and saying, this is what they do all the time. And they said, what can we do? We don't feel like this. They don't represent us. Who do they represent? And it is because there's a sense that they don't represent us that they moved on to saying, can we develop an alternative narrative, a people-centric narrative? There is a huge reservoir of support or of a different way of looking at India and Pakistan in each other's countries. And maybe we can tap into that. Is there a possibility? It was an idea that germinated and that actually gained some kind of concrete shape in Lahore when 9 people met. And these were not many Indians. Tapan was, of course, there. So was Shumanto Banerjee. There was Dr. Mubashir Hassan. There was Rehman Saab, of course. I think Asma was there. So you had a body of people who didn't really represent anything, but they did represent a faith and a vision. In fact, you know, such an idealistic, romantic vision it sounds today, but a vision that there is a people-centric possibility of shifting the narrative, of in fact solidarity, of people to fight against common struggles, common issues. And from that, there was this leap of the joint convention. When Tapan mentioned that they were actually thinking of getting visas for 100 Pakistanis, he was laughed. He was really laughed out of, I mean, I remember a very eminent public intellectual who, when he heard this, just openly mocked him. And they said, you must be crazy. But I also know that when he went to the foreign secretary of that time and said, look, we'd like to do this. And he said, why are you sounding so diffident? He said, well, because I think it's very ambitious. He said, you tell me, how many do you want? And he said, 100. He said, okay, I'm the man to give it to you. I will decide. And I say yes. It was like that. At that time, our foreign office was very powerful. I wouldn't say it is today, but anyway, that's another matter. And from then onwards, of course, it rolled. You have many of you have walked in along the Vaga, crossed the Vaga border, and come to India. We too have crossed the border and gone. There were these joint conventions. There was this huge outpouring, and I have to say that if a peace constituency was nurtured, I mean, if I'm trying to understand why is it in 2008 when there was the Mumbai attack, what persuaded Manmohan Singh not to retaliate, like we've had with Pulwama, like we've had with so many other incidents? Why didn't he retaliate? And I think the very small peace, or rather significant but powerful and influential peace constituency in Mumbai had an impact. I think the peace constituency in India had an impact. And therefore, although there has been this huge rollback, there is ascendant Hindutva politics, there is huge hate speech. There is, over the last few years, we have seen Pakistan become an election issue. We've seen Bangladesh become an election issue. And these were things that were never part of, in fact, the election discourse. There is a great deal of toxic poison. I was in Pakistan about 3 years or 2 years ago, and I remember there was a cricket match playing, and India won. The Pakistanis actually distributed sweets to us, and they said, "Your team played so well. I cannot imagine this happening in India now." There is so much toxicity. That's the poison that has seeped in has been so strong, so virulent, and so prevalent. But there is also a counter. And I see this in the many myriad initiatives that people are taking, that in the fact that people continue to write that South Asia is and has to be a reality because we have common issues. How can you possibly deal with the minority issue of all our countries without looking at the regional, that it's a regional problem? We have kin states. Minorities in one country are majorities in another. You cannot even address this problem without recognizing it has foreign policy dimensions. It has to be engaged with regionally. The refugee question, the poverty question, the fact that people struggle, solidarity for people's struggles, the learnings from each other. I mean, there was a time when we had cross-border learning about Muslim women. We had learning over issues of democracy, over issues of how does one handle, on the Indus River. But today, all those networks have broken down. And the sad thing, the tragedy is that I see this happening with Bangladesh. I see this happening with Nepal. I see this happening, well, a little less, but even with Sri Lanka. I mean, India thinks that it can jump out of the neighborhood, be the stable country, the progressive country and forget that if our neighbors do not run alongside us, we're not going anywhere. And about Tapan, Tapan is a very complicated man, not an easy man, but a very big man. He thought big, he dreamt big, his vision was huge. I mean, if I think of the number of institutions that he founded or co-founded, my God, I mean, in London, he co-founded the Other Cinema. In India, there was the Other Media. There was South Asia Forum for Human Rights in Kathmandu. There was Cinemat. There was South Asia Human Rights Documentation Center. There was, countless. The fact that he was also the mentor for so many people all across South Asia, his footprint, and that is actually not limited. And then one forgets that, hey, wait a minute, his core was his documentary filmmaking, something that he continued right to the end. He gave, even in September, he was part of a workshop explaining to young people how film works, how documentary film, what kind of impact it has. And when he died, just a few months before that, he was doing research on right-wing populism. right-wing populism not only in India, but right-wing populism in South Asia, and how to address it. He was a man with a really very, very large vision, and he was extremely fortunate to have equally large visionaries walk alongside him, like, in fact, Rahman Saab, like Asma Jahangir, like Mubashir Hassan, and of course, many in India, like the Admiral Ramdas, and oh, so many, Shumanto Banerjee, Dinesh Mohan, Gautam Navlakha, Tista, and Bina. In fact, Bina, I found a photograph of the very young Bina speaking at Hotel Metropole, PIPFPD. I mean, these are all, they remain initiatives, interventions, whether it was the people's tribunals that he was engaged with, whether in fact it was the self-determination struggles in Kashmir, Nagaland, Punjab. It sounds so crowded, but his life was very crowded because he really thought big, and somehow he seemed to have accomplished a lot, and he died before he finished.
Thank you. Wonderful tribute. Bina, you would like to add something? Okay. Yes, definitely. Why? Because we have lost so many people. The names that you just mentioned, we lost Ayyar Rahman Saab, we lost Asma Jahangir, Mubashir Hassan Saab is no more there. Now Ramdas, Admiral Ramdas and Tapan. So it's a very sad feeling that we are losing these stalwarts of peace struggle, and not many new people are coming up. Yes, Bina.
I don't know about not many new people coming up. There are a lot of new people coming up. There are a lot of young people coming up, and that's what gives me hope. There are a lot of young people, volunteers across the region and the diaspora. And in fact, I want Khushi to talk a little bit about, because she was at this workshop with young people in Bangladesh just now, and we were talking the other day about what's giving her hope. So let's
Khushi, welcome to the discussion. And as Bina mentioned that, but before that, I would also like you to mention something about your own life struggle. You have been a Pakistani citizen, then you are a Bangladeshi citizen, and Bangladesh is an interesting country where there were people who, in one lifetime, they changed 3 citizenships. If somebody was born in 1930s or 40s, he or she was a British Indian citizen. Then after 47, the same person was a Pakistani citizen, and after 71, the same person became a Bangladeshi citizen. So there are not many countries where people can boast of having had 3 citizenships of 3 different countries. And interestingly, when we talk about peace, mostly it is between Pakistan and India. Somehow we tend to overlook because it was Pak-India Peace Forum, and somehow we did not include Bangladesh in that for whatever reasons. So please let us know, Khushi, about your own life struggle briefly, and then what Bina mentioned about your recent activities. Khushi, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita, for taking me down memory lane. And, I met Tapan so many years ago, he's left his mark and he'll continue to be along with us. Bangladesh, the whole scenario that you're talking about, I wasn't born when the British was still in the subcontinent. I was born immediately after that. So I had a Pakistan nationality, but when 71 happened, we look at it from Bangladesh as a very positive step that we took ourselves. It was not something that was foisted on us. It was not something that was negotiated by, leaders who said that this is where this line will be drawn and that there will be this country or that country. It is something that the people of this country, of Bangladesh, fought to achieve and create their own land. So I just feel very proud of the fact of my Bangladesh legacy and my Bangladesh, my identity. Now, having said that, I do very firmly believe that we need to, despite our own historical perspectives and where we come from and what has happened, it's very crucial and important for reasons that has been mentioned, that we do need to come together as a South Asian identity. There is so much that we need to learn from each other. There's so much we share and so much commonalities. And exactly what Rita said, when the minorities of one country may be the majority of another country. It's not just, or was it Bina? It's not just religious minorities. It's also ethnic. You have indigenous communities who swath all our different countries. It's your cultural identity, the language and the culture you share. So all that is very much there. Now, my father was working with the government, so because the capital was Karachi at that time, I grew up, my schooling was in Karachi. And then in 1964, I came to Dhaka because I wanted to study art. In my mind, my parents were still, they had moved to Rawalpindi because the capital had shifted to Islamabad by then. So I came to Dhaka to study art because I felt that the school in Dhaka was much richer and would give me much more. You had Zainul Abidin over here. And with someone like Zainul Abidin, I mean, I would get much more than going to Lahore, where I would have to stay again in a hostel or someplace else. Now, so I've been in both sides, in Pakistan as well as in Bangladesh and Bengal. What is rich in our side is the culture, and this culture is very different from the culture of what is Pakistan. But I think there are many things that are very common too. And I want to just say that, I have many friends who became my friends when I came to Dhaka, who are now in Pakistan, and many very good friends in Pakistan who I met afterwards. And I just want to say that it was a very crucial meeting. Is a very good friend of ours, I think most of us may have known her, Kamla Bhasin. She worked a lot in trying to bring South Asian, especially feminists together and South Asian groups together. So we had a South Asian feminist workshop, and this was way back in the mid-80s. And I was going to be having to spend a whole month. And I just couldn't feel that I could spend a month with Pakistanis. And that meeting where we spoke about ourselves and our inner feelings was so important because it made many Pakistani women who were present, or the few Pakistani women who were present there, realize what we felt. And for me to realize that why should we just go with the state narrative of animosity, enmity, and division, that we have so many things that we need to come together. And the reason I say as a region is, you talked about India as the big country in the, Rita, but, India is so big. Parts of South India has more in common with Sri Lanka than it has with Himachal or something like that. Parts of India has more in common with Bangladesh than it has with Punjab. Parts of Pakistan have more in common. And the reason why the discussion and debate was very much, very much it was, very Pakistan-India centric, the peace process too, is basically because what you said is the nuclear power. I would sometimes joke and said that for us to be taken into consideration in the discussion, maybe Bangladesh needs to become a nuclear power. That's the only time when people will start taking notice. I'm saying it as a joke, but the fact is that the India-Pakistan, I'd look at it in two ways. One is the nuclear power and the fear of what this could mean and what this would create. B, it's very easy to try and build a narrative of somebody being the enemy, and you need to build an enemy that's strong so you can bring people together for you as a government to try and have control. And by control, a lot of our parties think control means support. I mean, there's a difference between the two words. So that was very easy. What is happening now is with Bangladesh. Bangladesh is going through an interesting transition now. It's interesting in terms of we don't know where we will be reaching. We are worried about where we will be reaching, but we know where we want to reach. And as Bina was saying, a lot of us are feeling very confused as to what is happening and where are we going. But when I've just come back today, in fact, just some hours back, from meeting with 51 young adolescent kids between the ages of 15 to 19 from the most remote areas of Bangladesh and from the most economically backward, as well as many from indigenous or other communities who are more marginalized. And they gave me so much hope. They were so clear. They were so positive. They knew what was happening. They knew what they wanted. And I felt if this is what the 51 that we got, who are representing maybe thousands more, because we couldn't have everyone over, then there is hope, because you just give space to people to meet each other, talk to each other. I think something positive comes. And that's why, I really never say no to any discussions that we have on the regional issue of coming together, because I think it's extremely important for us to first understand each other, understand where we are coming from, and then learn how to come together and then overcome the narratives that is trying to divide us. Divisions will be there. There'll be differences. Of course, there'll be differences. We cannot state that we're all one. We are not. But let us understand those differences and let us look at what it is that we need to be able to move forward together. Because in this globalized world where so much rife and so much war and so much strife is going on, we need voices of sanity and peace. And as a region, this is something we need very drastically.
Thank you,
Thank
Khushi. Definitely, we need more voices of sanity. And that was a very interesting point that you mentioned about some parts of India and the people having more cultural and linguistic affinity with Bangladesh than with the rest of India or with Pakistan. And even in Pakistan, there are people in border regions where Pashto-speaking people have more cultural and linguistic affinity with people in Afghanistan. So this has happened, I think, after partition, this has happened everywhere. And probably that was the reason when great Bacha Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, used to say that I want my travel route open from Kabul to Calcutta. And that was one of the reasons why he opposed tooth and nail the division of India. Anyway, Bina, you have spoken briefly, but I think it is about time you briefed us about your own journey from Aman Ki Asha. You have been a peace activist and human rights activist since 1990s, and you have seen the ups and downs all along. You have been frequently visiting India and even Bangladesh. So briefly take us through that journey that you have traveled from 90s to Pak India Peace Forum and Aman Ki Asha to Tapan.
Yeah, thank you, Nazir, and thank you so much, Khushi and Rita, for your comments and for sharing those insights and memories. So yeah, like Nazir, as you said, I've been part of so Tapan, the South Asia Peace Action Network, is not something that has come out of the blue. It has something that is built upon these other initiatives that you mentioned, some of the ones that Rita mentioned as well. So I was part of the journey from 93, I think 94, it was the first convention of the Pakistan India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy. And I remember at that first convention in Delhi, and that first convention in Delhi actually, I was talking to Naseem Zehra today, and she said she might try and come, but she was part of the process that led to that. There were several meetings before that first meeting between Indians and Pakistanis. There's a gentleman called O.P. Shah in Kolkata, and he met Rahman Saab somewhere in the 80s, I think, and he said, and they said, oh, we should do this, and their book is just coming out. Center for Peace and Progress in Kolkata is just publishing the book, which is being released in, there's a book launch in Delhi, and one in, also they want to have one in Islamabad as well, of essays about these issues. But so that's a big jump from the 1990s to now. So I remember that first convention of the Pakistan, when they were deciding on the name of what will this forum be called, and you said, like you said, that the Rita said that that when Tapan went to the foreign secretary and said, I want 100 people, and he was like, okay, fine. But that before that, there was this meeting of what is this forum going to be called, and I don't know who it was. It might have been Tapan who said, we always say, we always talk about India, Pakistan, India, Pakistan. This is one forum where the name Pakistan will come first. It was an Indian who said that at that meeting, that the name Pakistan will come first. So that is why it is called the Pakistan-India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy. There was a lot of discussion on the name, and it is a bit of a mouthful, but that's the name, the PIPFPD. And they've had, from 19, so the first, that meeting was in February, then there was in Delhi, then there was a meeting that same year in, I think, November or December in Lahore, and then subsequently every year there was a meeting. There were meetings in Bangalore, Kolkata, Calcutta as it was then, Hyderabad, Pakistan, Peshawar, Lahore, Karachi, Allahabad, I believe Lucknow also, I'm not sure. But anyway, so, and why not Bangladesh in this Pakistan-India People's Forum? Because Pakistan and India relations are the elephant in the room that are holding back the development of the entire region. It is the relations between Pakistan and India that are holding it back and that are coloring the other things, like the Bangladesh's hostility under Sheikh Hasina towards Pakistan was partly also due to India's influence, right? So Pakistan-India People's Forum for Peace and Democracy, then from 2007 onwards, the government stopped giving visas. The next PIPFPD convention was supposed to be in Peshawar, I think it was 2007 or 2008, and then that whole so-called war on terror was happening, and then the election, the emergency, and then Benazir Bhutto was assassinated, and the Pakistan government said, we cannot give visas to so many Indians to come to Pakistan, who will take care of security, and so that whole thing went up. And then the PIPFPD was not able to have a joint convention since then. Although there were individual meetings, there was one in Allahabad where they had a meeting. I think they did have managed to have a joint convention in Allahabad. I think 2012 there was one, but although the turn was for Pakistan to do it. And then Aman Ki Asha started in 2010. So, it filled in that gap, that void left by the PIPFPD. And what Aman Ki Asha did was, started by the Jung Group and the Times of India, the two biggest media groups of both countries, Aman Ki Asha mainstreamed peace. PIPFPD was, like what we call the intellectuals and the trade unions and, the Jhola Brigade, like NGOs and all that. And Aman Ki Asha took it to the people because there were billboards in the it was in the mainstream papers. So that's what Aman Ki Asha did, and so I was handling it editorially from, and the website is still there, but both the two organizations, they did their CSR, their corporate social responsibility, and then they both got caught up in other things, whatever issues, and that whole thing kind of fizzled out from that, like on the ground events that they did, literary events, mushairas, music conferences. We did a conference on water. Water is life. We talked about the issue of water. We were planning all kinds of other issues, person to person. Media ke upar bhi humne kiya tha. And then since 2014, they have not had any events. Magar that website is still there as a archive, and also I do keep updating it every now and then, but mostly what I put on that website now is Tapan news features. And because I think that, and then Tapan News, South Asia Peace came about because, many of us discussed this and we said that, India, Pakistan, that these two countries keep, if we keep just appealing to them and saying, please give us, let people meet, please dialogue, please, they're not listening. They're not listening to us. And we talked about this earlier, that, they are not representing the people. And like Rita was saying earlier, maybe Rahman Saab and Tapan were not representing, they're not elected representatives for sure, but they represent the aspirations. We represent the aspirations of the people of the region to meet and trade and travel and connect. So the South Asia Peace Action Network, or SAPAN, basically takes that dream, that Aman Ki Asha, that dream, that hope for peace forward, but on a regional level. Because if we look at everything from a regional level, maybe that it's something that has not been done so far. So we have to try it. It's been 3 years, it'll be 4 years in March since we started it. So, and it's all on a voluntary level. There is no government or corporate or any kind of sponsorship or funding on anything. It's run through volunteerism and individual contributions, and that itself gives it a very it gives it a power. It's intergenerational. We have people. I think Ramu Ramdas was one of the oldest, but there are older people. Like there's one of our oldest members. He's 93 years old now in Bangalore. Vasant Pai Saab, who has been with us since the Aman Ki Asha days. O.P. Shah in Kolkata, he's like in his 90s also now. So there are, and then there's teenagers, young people joining, people in their 20s and 30s, and older people, middle-aged people like us with white hair. So it's an intergenerational, I would say, movement of aspirational individuals in the region and also the diaspora. And I think that is really important, because people in the diaspora are now able to, they can step in where people on the ground are too embattled. You're facing so much on the ground in all these countries. So I think we have to support each other and take things forward together in solidarity, cross-regional, cross-diaspora, cross-border, inter-regional, and so on. So, and I just want to actually say, agar aapko slides dikha dein, which I had put, because the meetings that we have on the last Sunday of every month, we start it by honoring our visionaries and people whose work we are taking, whose ideas and dreams we are taking forward. I'll just read out the names. Dr. Mubashir Hassan, Kuldeep Nayyar, Asma Jahangir, Rajni Kothari, Nirmala Deshpande, Dr. Samal Kalagama, Ayer Rahman, Sabeen Mahmood, Sufia Kamal, Sania Hussain, Madanjeet Singh, Dr. Iqbal Ahmed. And these are not, of course, all. We have lost several people since this. Rita mentioned Dinesh Mohan already. Kamran Arif, Dinesh Mohan, Mohammad Ali Shah from the Pakistan Fisher Folk Forum, Rubina Sehgal, Kamla Bhasin, Dr. Zafarullah Chaudhary, Ramu Ramdas, Karamat Ali, and we will now, of course, add Tapan Bose to this list, with our sadness. But also we take forward their legacies, and there's so many more who have participated, whose work we take forward. So you can go back to you can end the slides. I think that we start every session with the founding charter that I mentioned to you before, those 3 points, and a brief honoring our visionaries, and also some prominent people who are part of our Kabila, part of our tribe, who have passed away since our last meeting. We mentioned them as well. I just learned recently that one of our, another person passed. I mean, death is part of life. People do keep passing away, and sometimes somebody will be maybe honoring us, maybe not. But so we have to look back and in order to look forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Bina. Coming back to once again, Rita, as Bina just mentioned an interesting point, that after 2007, things started changing and we could not have that many interactions or joint conventions. And I also mentioned that in the past 20 to 25 years, things have even gone worse. So to my mind, Rita, there are two reasons. I don't know whether you agree to that or not. One was restoration of civilian government in Pakistan in 2008. And we have seen in Pakistan, whenever military dictatorship is in place, somehow that military dictator tries his best to have normal relationship with the eastern border with India. And that's what General Ziaulak did. Whatever he was doing in Afghanistan at that time, he tried his best to have normal relationship with India. He visited India also even to watch a cricket match. But as soon as Benazir Bhutto's first civilian government came in 1988, and we had that SAR conference, establishments, people or whoever tried to sabotage that also. And then from then onwards in 1990s, we did not have that much good relationship with India. Then when Musharraf came to power, once again, we had good relationship, relatively good relationship. Yes, Bina?
After he already did Kargil.
Yes, yes. But Kargil was done when Nawaz Sharif was in power. So, but when he came to power, he tried to normalize relationship. But as soon as PP government came to power in 2008, once again we had, cross-border infiltration also and various attacks and all. And then things went sliding down. So this was one factor. And the second factor is coming of BJP into power in 2014 in India. So when I look back the past 20 years, I think why Pak-India relationships have gone down, these two apparent reasons or causes come to my mind. And internal policies also affect external policies. Internal policy and foreign policy are two sides of the same coin. So how do you look, Rita, at this observation? Do you agree with my observation? And secondly, what latest is happening in India on the part of BJP, because BJP has its own Hindutva agenda. And of course, they are not only targeting Hindus in India, but overall an anti-Pakistan rhetoric is always there, which is much more pronounced. And they have even tried to change history books also. Drastic changes I hear have been made in history textbooks in India under BJP government in the past 10 or 11 years. So what is your observation on that?
Right, thank you. You are absolutely correct when you say that military governments in Pakistan have seen a period of better relations. In fact, Manishankar Iyer is on record about saying that the Indian government talks about the deep state or military governments in Pakistan being an impediment to better relations with India. On the contrary, it is when military governments have been in power, there has been a visible improvement in the relationship. I'm not going into why, but certainly in terms of the record. But the other aspect is in 2012 or 13, there was an attempt, and in fact it happened. We had a seminar. I mean, the transition from joint conventions or frankly, a people's strategy to in fact more select meetings so that in fact it wouldn't die. The effort was to have, in fact, and we had a seminar called Understanding Pakistan. And it was held at the India International Center. It was, which is a very prestigious, but rather sort of liberal institution, certainly not radical. And it was extremely densely visited. I mean, it was one of the most crowded seminars they've ever had. So that there is a huge appetite for this. And these were young people, as well as, of course, the expected people to visit. And what it indicated is that there is really a lacuna. We don't have great scholarship except from who writes the books on Pakistan? Who does the research on Pakistan? Certainly not students. In JNU, or even when I was in a think tank, I was probably one of the very few who worked on South Asia, because you never got travel grants. You wouldn't be able to visit. So you don't choose these topics where you cannot actually do real field research. And so who writes the books on Pakistan? The people who write the books on Pakistan are our former ambassadors. I'm not saying they're not very good books. They're excellent books. But the point is, they interpret from a diplomatic perspective, from a status perspective. We do not have, I don't know if within Pakistan you have, there is very little awareness about what is happening in Pakistan, what is happening in Balochistan, what is happening in Sindh. In fact, even in terms of extremism. I mean, I was very surprised to read, and she is, I've now forgotten her name, the author's name, but I remember reviewing her book and being extremely surprised about what she is saying about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and about the Pashtunwali and so forth. I mean, what I remember very clearly is, as she said, we're always associating the AK-47 with the Pathans or with the but for them the rabab, the musical instrument, is as dear to them as is in fact their gun, and the very fact that you have a movement. I've forgotten the title of that movement, and I remember at this seminar when the person who heads that movement was speaking, there was a stampede because he was such a popular figure. He believes in nonviolence. He believes in democratic processes. He was, and I think he still is, an elected member of the National Assembly. So nobody knows about this. And there is absolutely no space for this kind of information to become available. So one of the reasons, one of the logic for Pak India Forum and the whole drive to get people to cross borders and visit each other was so that we become aware, so that we, scientists, businessmen, trade unionists, intellectuals, ordinary people, activists, become aware of what is the reality. And the reality is a very complex, often very contradictory reality. But we have no way of really accessing that reality. And social media is absolutely no substitute for that. And you're correct when you say history books are being rewritten. It's not only what they might say about Pakistan. We are trying to erase our entire Muslim history. And so it's it is the domestic, what is happening domestically, what is happening ideologically in India is driving the relationship with both Bangladesh as well as with Pakistan. And today it is not, the bogey in the room is not Pakistan. The bogey in the room is Bangladesh. We've had the Delhi elections recently. Bangladeshi immigrants was an issue. And it is, you're finding this, of course, in the Northeast, I would expect this. But in Delhi, in Madhya Pradesh, and the Rohingyas and the Bangladeshis are, of course, clubbed together. There are, what is the number of Rohingyas in Madhya Pradesh? What is the number even in Delhi? Not more than 1,000 and something. And yet they're becoming electoral issues. So it's not, this is the irony of it. Pakistan did not figure in this election. Maybe it's just so taken for granted. But Bangladesh did. And I think you are correct when you emphasize that it is the domestic ideological driven policies that are today really shaping and complicating our relations with neighbors. And I fear that, and they're willing to jeopardize relations with neighbors to be able to pursue this agenda, which is, earlier there were checks and balances. I see how, in fact, China is handled. We have much more difficult relationship with China. We've had open confrontation, violent confrontation. Yet China is handled with kid gloves. Bangladesh, it's open season.
Thank you very much. Very interesting observations. And that brings us to Bangladesh and Khushi. There has been a lot of euphoria in Pakistan and Pakistani establishment, especially after this change of government in Bangladesh. And some people are projecting it as defeat of India and victory for Pakistan. And in Pakistan, it is the idea is being peddled that in fact the people of Bangladesh never wanted to have close relationship with India, but in fact it was Hasina Wajid who was forcing Bangladesh into Indian direction. But now people of Bangladesh have spoken, and they have spoken clearly against Hasina Wajid, and they want much better relationship with Pakistan rather than with India. This is the perception in Pakistan. And now Rita Manchanda has testified to that in India, the new bogey is Bangladesh. So Khushi, let us know, what is your observation on that? Is this observation correct, that people of Bangladesh themselves wanted closer relationship with Pakistan rather than with India? And what is the current situation there?
The question is, who decides who are people? Who decides that this is what people want? Who decides that this is exactly what people are wanting? I think there's a lot of problems. It's very problematic to simplify and make it, that pro-India, pro-Pakistan, pro-this, pro-that. There are problems with our relationship with India right from if you look at it from a people-centric point of view, right from the beginning. And that was a big brother attitude. And I'm using the word brother deliberately. That we had a liberation war. We fought that liberation war. I would like to remind everyone that the only war that India ever won in their wars with Pakistan was 1971. And that was only because that war began in March, not on December 3rd, when Pakistan declared war. It is 71. We appreciate very much the fact that India gave refuge to 10 million people in their borders. There were a lot of people within Bangladesh who were internal refugees who moved from the villages to another village. Or no one left the country because for any political reason, but for fear of their life, their safety and security. They were being killed. They were being killed because the Pakistani junta was afraid of anyone who they thought could be a freedom fighter, a Mukti Bahini. So when India gives the narrative of the 1971 war, they talk about the war they won. They never talk about the war they helped Bangladesh and supported. Yes, when they came in on the 3rd of December, it was a time when actually the morale of the Pakistani army had already gone finished. Many parts of Bangladesh were liberated by then, but it was still a strong army, and it was only because the freedom fighters were there together that the liberation war happened. That doesn't mean it gives India the right to ensure and insist and think that Bangladesh is going to be a vassal state, Bangladesh is going to be a subservient state, Bangladesh is going to be a state that they can control. We fought against Pakistan because of the kind of control that Pakistan had over our economic resources, over our people and all, trying to destroy our culture. And that is something that the people in Bangladesh always felt resentful about, the way India had this big brother attitude towards Bangladesh. But that doesn't mean that they were very pro-Pakistan. I don't think that people are very happy and jubilant. It's a small group who did not support the liberation war of 71, who sided with the Pakistani junta at that time in the killings, in the murders, in the arson, looting, in showing where the villages were, where active freedom fighters were sheltering. So this group have now decided that because there's been a change and Sheikh Hasina Wajid was looked upon somebody who was very close to India, which she was, but she also do remember that she was also very close to China. She took a lot of support from China. She was close to Russia. They were trying to do a nuclear plant for power, which was underway and is now held up for the moment. So she was trying to play a role in balancing power. But the main problem, I think, and I want to go back to the fact that it's not just what the people are just very jubilant about. People are not. People do not want that we move from being under the hegemony of India to being that we are the lackeys of Pakistan. Not at all. Sorry. 71 is not going to be erased from our history ever. 71 exists and it will exist in the minds of every person here. A group of people do not represent the whole of Bangladesh. But what I would like to say is that, when SARC was formed, people felt at least state to state, government to government, there would be some way of trying to have a network, some easing of not just business and trade, but even people-to-people contact, health, education, understanding each other, cultural exchanges, sports, etc. This would all be, because, the SARC had many, the SAF Games, they have the SAF Chamber of Commerce, they have the different cultural, the journalists group. So what happened? Pakistan and India, because of their conflict, it is decided there will no longer be any SARC meeting. So that comes to an end. So I think it's extremely important that we all understand each other. We need to understand what happened in Sri Lanka, not just, Bina made this film, which was excellent, and we showed it all over. It's been shown all over the world. The reason being, normal mainstream media doesn't give us the real picture of what's happened in these countries. We want to know what's happening in Nepal. We want to know how are they maneuvering and the difficulties with the kind of democracies that Nepal is going through. It's a fledgling democracy. We want to know what kind of a democracy should we have, and all of us need to learn how can we have democracies that does not allow autocracies and dictators and, fascists to grow. We don't want the Modis to come into power through votes. We want people to be aware and know what the consequences are. We don't want Sheikh Hasinas to come and be able to take on an entire role of just not listening to anybody and feeling that there is no opposition, not allowing opposition. Not allowing opposition is really problematic. We need to learn from Sri Lanka. How did they, after having thrown out a government, continue to work? And we need to know more details of, is it working? I think these are things that we need to see, and it's global, because I see that Marcos' son gets elected as the president after such a big, movement against Marcos. Trump gets elected as a president after he tried to do that whole thing in Washington, D.C. Before the last 20 elections. So there is a need for us as South Asians, yes, to merge and understand each other. We need to understand our cultures, which, as I say, merge with our different borders. You talked about parts of India and Bangladesh, the Greater Bengal having so much in common. Nepal having so much in common with part of India, not all of India, part with Bangladesh and Bengal too. You have South India, which has a lot of commonalities with Sri Lanka. We need to understand even the other countries, Afghanistan, which has so much with the north of Pakistan. So we understand each other and we need to really learn from each other. And I think this kind of narrative of we are siding with this and now we are siding with that country, which is the big power that we want to side with within the region, is something that's very negative. It is not something that brings in peace building, which is what we want to talk about. I think peace building means learning to respect every nation, every culture, no matter how in numbers or in whatever role they may be minimal.
Thank you, Khushi. That was very helpful. And you made the right point that memories of 1971 are not that easy to erase. And that reminds me of famous Faiz Ahmad Faiz's couplet, in fact poem, when he, after 1971, when he first time visited Bangladesh, he met some old friends in Dhaka, and that's where he wrote, हम के ठहरे अजनबी कितनी मदारातों के बाद फिर बनेंगे आशना कितनी मुलाकातों के बाद. तो उसमें एक लाइन थी जो कहती है कि खून के धब्बे धुलेंगे कितनी बरसातों के बाद. तो उनके, जब ये ढाका में उन्होंने पढ़ा तो उनके एक बंगाली दोस्त ने कहा कि फैज साहब, खून के धब्बे बरसातों से नहीं धुलते. तो ये बात हकीकत है कि खून के धब्बे बरसातों से नहीं.
I didn't get the first part, but I got the last part. Yes.
हाँ, ये फैज की लाइन थी, खून के धब्बे धुलेंगे कितनी बरसातों के बाद. तो उनसे कहा कि फैज साहब, ये खून के धब्बे बरसातों से नहीं धुलते. तो हम उस पे जाने, यानी वी हैव 10 to 15 मिनट्स फॉर क्वेश्चन एंड आंसर, बट बिफोर दैट बीना के पास मैं आऊँगा. लेकिन मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगा, वी हैव फॉर्मर सेनेटर बाबर साहब, फरतुल्ला बाबर साहब, आप आगे आ जाएं ना, आप पीछे बैठ जाते हैं आके. प्लीज़ कम फॉरवर्ड, यहाँ आ जाएं. वी हैव फॉर्मर सेनेटर, हमारे ह्यूमन राइट्स एक्टिविस्ट हैं, सेनेटर हैं, और जो हम सेन वॉइसेस की बात कर रहे थे, वन ऑफ द सेनेस्ट वॉइसेस इन पाकिस्तान, सेनेटर फरतुल्ला बाबर साहब. यस. अच्छा, तो हमारा 10-15 मिनट क्वेश्चन आंसर का सेशन होता है, बट बिफोर दैट आई वुड लाइक बीना टू सम अप द होल डिस्कशन बिफोर वी ओपन द फ्लोर फॉर क्वेश्चन एंड आंसर.
Thank you, Nazir, and thank you, Babar Saab, for coming. And can you hear me? Yes. It'd be difficult. I mean, there was so much. We talked about so many things. I think, mota, my big takeaways from this are the fact that, you know, we need to have people-to-people relations, and we are hoping now that that Bangladesh-Pakistan ties will improve, and the air connectivity. I wanted to actually adding this point because we didn't talk about that, because it is, we talked about being the geographically, historically, culturally connected region, but with the least connectivity probably of any contiguous region in the world. We don't have any direct flights between Pakistan and Kathmandu. We don't have any direct flight between Pakistan and India anymore. We don't have any direct flight between Pakistan and Dhaka, Bangladesh anymore. And we're hoping that at least that will revive. And we have Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and then Sri Lanka probably in all the region and the others. But we really need to revive the air connectivity, and I'm hoping that we'll have an article soon in Tapan News about this. So we need people-to-people meetings and gatherings. You know, I think another ironic thing that perhaps didn't come up, it was kind of implied, but as the government stopped giving visas, and again, especially it happens between India and Pakistan more, as the government stopped giving visas, that was the time of the rise of social media. So people were connecting on social media, and then the COVID gave us this thing of online meetings. That's how Tapan started as well, through online meetings. And then we have, and I was telling some friends the other day that, you know, Facebook used to have this thing called facebook.com/peace. And facebook.com/peace, it has ended, but I'm glad I got a few screenshots of it, which I'm sorry I should have prepared and put it on the screen for you all, but I didn't. And they had 3 conflict zones: Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel, and India, Pakistan. And it just shared every day, there was a counter of how many friendships were formed across those conflict zones every single day. So the number for Ukraine, Russia, Palestine, Israel was in the thousands every day. For Pakistan and India, I think the average, it ranged from 2.5 lakhs every day to, I think the highest was in one day was maybe something like 4. I don't remember the exact details, but I took screenshots, and then this little thing went away, and I kept trying to find out who started it, why, what was the thinking behind it. And why is it being stopped? But I never found out. I tried very hard, but I could never find out. So people to people. So at the time that they stopped giving visas, people were connecting online. But you know, the nuance that you get from in person, you cannot get that online. And I think especially WhatsApp groups and chats and email, especially they can actually be very detrimental, because you can't sometimes tell what the intention of the person is. People get triggered and say something, you get reactive. So it actually causes a lot of problems. So I think next best thing to in-person meeting is at least to have video calls where you, and not like WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp groups are okay to share information, but not for discussion, not for any kind of nuanced understanding. So I'm very glad that Khushi and Rita were able to join us. And of course, this is the big thing, the most intense, and Rita, as you said when we spoke yesterday, was that this is the area, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, these are the difficult areas in this region, because Nepal and Sri Lanka are like, yes, open, come, visa on arrival practically, easy. But we need to get these three, and that's why actually we have a petition online. It is called, it's at change.org, and it's change.org/milnedo, MILNEDO. So we have thousands of signatures on that, and maybe we should revive that now and like take it forward, and maybe we have some volunteers. We've started a new volunteer cohort for Tapan, for South Asia Peace Action Network. So maybe we can get some volunteers from around the region to do something with that as well. So I don't think I really summed up the discussion, Nazir. Why don't I let you do that?
Now the floor is open for questions. First Nayyar Saab or then Sial Saab.
Maybe people can introduce themselves for the sake of our guests and people who are watching.
Bilkul.
Introduce yourselves and then ask your question.
Hello, so my name is Nayyar, and Rita we have met before. The question is that we all know about these people-to-people contacts. All this movement depended upon the goodwill of the governments to give us permissions to go and meet. And the governments were quite willing to do that. But then the governments themselves have had this formulation that Khushi mentioned, SARC. They had that, but they always subverted it. At least two governments subverted it. How do we understand that? I mean, they were at one time willing to allow people to go and meet and create these connections. On the other hand, when they had this nice formal formulations, they just subverted it.
Sorry, do you want me to answer this, or should I take a bunch, or what?
Go ahead, Rita.
Rita,
okay.
you respond to this question and then we will move to the next.
All right. Nair Saab, hello. If you look at when is it that, in fact, the SARC meetings, of course, India has been very ambivalent about SARC right from the beginning, and it was never initiated by India. In fact, that it was extremely suspicious about it because it saw it as a way of the other countries ganging up on it, ganging up against it. So I'm so sorry, ganging up against it, and. But if you look at the rhetoric of statements, in the statements by India, even when it is saying it wants nothing to, terror and talk don't work together or cannot coexist together, it keeps saying that it is in support of people-to-people relations. And I think there was always ambivalence about people-to-people contact, of in fact providing for visas. But there was also within the government a strong group that felt that people-to-people contacts should be encouraged, that they were a resource, that they were an asset, that they were a resource. There is extreme suspicion about the establishment in Pakistan. But as far as people-to-people were concerned, there was, as I said, there were groups within the Indian government that were in support of this, which is why you've also, whenever the joint conventions would take place, the chief ministers would always throw a dinner, or there would always be this kind of support. There has been a shift both in terms of SARC as well as in terms of the attitude towards Pakistan, and that has a great deal to do with our domestic politics and to do with, in fact, ascendant, the sort of, ascendant Hindutva and the anti-minority sentiment that has now spread all over. There was a time we used to say that this is a problem of only North India. South of the Vindhyas, you don't have this problem. Today, I would not say that. Today, I think this communal poison has spread all across India. And if you look at Karnataka, you look at even Kerala, you look at these states, there are still states that buck the trend, but there is a great deal of communal spread all across India. And but I think one needs to look at some of the dates. I don't know exactly when it is when SARC was actually, the SARC summit that was to be held in Kathmandu was stymied. I think it is fairly close to, in fact, the BJP coming to power.
2014.
Sorry?
In 2014.
Yeah, so that is it. There is a shift. And there is a shift now. I'm not saying that even today in our government, there wouldn't be pockets in support. But at that point of time, there were many, many such pockets. And there was always a debate whether, there was always a problem with the home ministry. There would always be special negotiations that we had to do with the home ministry. But there were people who were willing to, in fact, step out, take the risk. Today, I don't think, and the mood, the atmosphere has changed. The openness that was still possible, that openness has really shrunk.
I just want to add to that this is definitely we are dependent on the goodwill of the governments for the visas. But when they give the visas, I don't know, Rita, we don't know. I mean, I can just go by anecdotal evidence because there aren't that many visas, but people who have gone to, talking about people who've gone to India and some people who have come from India to Pakistan have not found any shortage of openness. They have been welcomed with open arms, whether they've gone to India or to Pakistan, the people that I've spoken to who have gone. So it hasn't been huge numbers, like if there's a cricket match, thousands of people went or given visas. Complete strangers offered them places to stay, even in India. And but even now, when the 2-3 people that I know who have gone recently to India have not had any bad experience at all, and they found people to be very warm and welcoming and open. So I don't know. It's just that we don't get that.
No. Let me clarify this. I'm not saying that you will meet with a hostile reception if you visit India. There is still so much of a reservoir of goodwill. There are still so many people with memories. There's still so many people who will be very affectionate. But I think you can understand that when the space for coexistence with Muslims is shrinking, how welcoming or how open and tolerant do you think that ordinary people will be towards Pakistan visitors?
Thank you, Rita. Next question, Sayal sir.
This is Tariq Sayal. My question to Ma'am Rita is, you mentioned that last summit of SARC held in Kathmandu in 1914. After that, it was scheduled in Pakistan in 2016. But it was not yet held because of, after the Kuri incident and at the same time, Pakistan, India Peace Forum and other forums are also inactive. Because of the environment, people also, these forums and these activities also affecting these private people-to-people contacts, because the governments are not interested in the SARC, and the other side, the people-to-people contacts also reduced because of due to the visa and other things. What's the you think that we can do, the activists who want to activeness, now SOC, and also the people to enhance the people-to-people contact?
You know, the big conventions are over. I do not see that happening. But there are so many small initiatives, and sometimes they're totally unexpected ones. I had gone when I'd gone for the Asma Jhangi Memorial meeting. I'd gone with a young woman, Sabha, who was the daughter of a very fine journalist in India, Mrinalini Subramaniam. And she had brought her young daughter along, who's a first-year student at Delhi University. And her main thing was, she said, I don't want to do anything. I want to just meet Taimur Rahman. Why did she want to meet Taimur Rahman? Because Taimur Rahman runs a Marxist study circle, and he runs it in Urdu. So a lot of people in India, I don't know about elsewhere whether the footprint reaches Nepal, but in India certainly, and particularly people who are Hindi speaking, join this session, because they say that there are so few people who actually run Marxist study circles in Hindi. And he has a huge following. He's a rock star. Now, these are, I'm not, of course, I also know that his politics are committed towards peace and so forth. But what I'm saying is there are small initiatives. There is the India-Pakistan peace calendar. There is the school exchanges. Certain private universities have links with the university, the university in Islamabad. So there are, I mean, these are small initiatives, nothing dramatic, nothing that is going to actually shift the debate. But what it does is it keeps it alive. And of course, Tapan is a very, very important initiative to show the appetite for, in fact, exchanges. And as Bina herself commented, it's very difficult when in a social media space, in a virtual space, to be able to have really intensive interaction, to bring in fact, the politics, and to go beyond the sense of goodwill, good feeling, and well-being. But it's an extremely exciting initiative, and I mean, I'm amazed at how many people wish to connect, because there is a huge appetite, not only amongst the diaspora, but also it's a much wider process. But there is real need, and particularly the young are very, very hungry for it. I do not, of course, see that many fora emerging because it is high risk.
Thank you, Rita. Khushi, would you like to add something to it, or?
Yeah, I'll just very briefly just say
Sure.
that moving on from what has been discussed, I think it's very important that we move forward, and we move forward in ways that we try and link and understand what I've said before is, like Tapan is an example. You have other initiatives that are taking place. And I think we need to really move away if you want to get something going from just the India and Pakistan debate to a wider debate that is more inclusive, not just of Bangladesh, but the other countries in the region too. I'd just like to end by saying one thing is, we have to be very careful not to get involved and play the game of the religion that is used to create the other. And we are all falling into that trap. And when Rita talks about what's happened in the Delhi elections, we all just fall into that trap. And I think it's extremely important that we do not allow religion to start dividing us and creating the otherness within us. And we go beyond and start learning to relate to each other. Tapan is an excellent example. I want to thank you for having this discussion going on, because this allows me to speak, you to hear many others speak, because what you're just listening to is certain rhetoric that people are coming about with, is what's happening currently. So I think I'd like more of such discussions to keep happening, so we can talk more, much more openly, and understand each other more.
Just one last question and then we will close the session.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Salma Malik. Rita, I had the good fortune to meet you from the WISCOM forum as well. Partially, my question has been answered by both you and Beena. My question primarily meant about the appetite for peace in the younger generation. Is it a genuine appetite, or do you think it's much of a curiosity as well? With the fact that the countries are taking independent trajectories, there's so much is happening, all that you have talked about. And then there are alternate fora where people are meeting through the social media as well. But how much of that is actually part of the genuine sentiment for peace, especially with so many big names that you people have talked about who have passed away? They have passed on the torch to Beena, to several others, to the WISCOM. But you very much know that WISCOM started from a South Asian forum, became an India-Pakistan thing, and now at max we meet virtually only. So how do we turn this entire story around? Thank you so much.
I think your question is very important. Even when the when Pak India Forum was at its peak, and we had like joint conventions involving the crossovers of maybe 200 people coming to Pakistan, 200 people going to India, even then, this was a major question. These people, are they coming for tourism? Are they coming just for a joyride? Or are these people actually concerned about the issues of the forum? And while I don't think this debate was ever resolved, the hope was that they would be exposed, that there is a process, there is a framing that would take them beyond the sense of feeling good about visiting India or feeling good about visiting Pakistan, to actually engaging with some of the issues. This is why I raised a question that how does one move from the point of the excitement and curiosity that you spoke about? But curiosity is the first step. Without that, we are not going to go anywhere. And I'm a great believer in curiosity. In fact, I'm a great believer in feminist curiosity. But I do believe that curiosity is going to open the window, and then it's up to us to create the robust environment, to take them beyond feeling good and, as one said, jhappi jhappi maro, and to go beyond that, to actually engaging with the issue. One of the reasons that I think Pak India Forum was so exceptional is that it was a very political forum. And the issues discussed were extremely, whether it was Kashmir or demilitarization or on issues of communalism or on the gender question. These were not easy, these were difficult issues. But I think that this is a debate that probably will not be resolved that easily. It is a question of opening windows and hoping that some people will stay and walk with you and be inspired by the big. I think unless you have these big figures who do inspire you, it's not easy. And I think I'm sure they're there and they're there amongst all of you. You're the young ones. And WISCOM has had a major challenge. Its FCRA has been choked. So that's a different matter. But yes, it's true. Everything is shrinking. But I agree with Khushi. Absolutely. The way forward even in terms of addressing or engaging with the India-Pakistan problem, is to look at these problems regionally, to keep framing it regionally. So it's not seen as a competition between two rivals, two antagonists, and so forth, but within a regional context where some of it can be managed and modulated.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Rita. Thank you very much, Khushi. There are more questions, but we don't have time because at 6 o'clock we have to start another session at the same place. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here, and Bina, especially to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Khushi. Thanks, Rita. Sorry we kept you waiting.